Okay, Nick and Andy, we're in the final few days of the transfer deadline. The summer window is nearly done. It's been a record-breaking summer window. So many huge deals, so much going on. Nick, I'm going to come to you first as we enter these final hours of the window. What's your thoughts on this finale? Because it's been breathtaking, exhausting, exciting, interesting, painful in all different ways for a lot of fans. But are you kind of happy it's going to be over and we can finally see the settled squads? And I think you in particular have quite a particular feeling about this window.
I do. First and foremost, I'm wondering how many Grimsby Town guys we can get into Newcastle ahead of the season. But yeah, it's crazy. I was writing our post on the top 10 players still available, and I was looking at this and thinking, wow, half of these names would be the biggest name to transfer in other windows. But we've seen every team, Liverpool, break the record in bringing in verts. Chelsea, Arsenal, all these teams bringing in players who would normally be the story of the window, and they're just a guy. And then looking at it with 5 days to go and thinking more guys, it is crazy because it's not just the spending. Like the spending would be enough, but we can project that the spending is going to keep going up, right? Like this is the world we live in now. But I look at it now and I'm kind of stunned at the quality of name and pedigree that are moving, and it's almost overwhelming.
It really is. There's another deal coming in on the phone there, so it's all going on. It's all happening. Andy, when we look at who are the players or clubs we should have our eye on the most, I mean, obviously we're going to ask Nick a lot about this, but Alexander Isak, that situation, the dominoes for Newcastle and other clubs, and how that will impact it late in the window. But I mean, Man United, given what's happened, they clearly need a couple of key pieces. Chelsea are trying to chop and change their squad in and out and have some big name players they want to sign. I mean, who have you got your eye on most, mate, when we look at the final few hours of this window?
Well, you bring up Manchester United there, and obviously they could use a couple more pieces. What happened against Grimsby Town in the second round of the League Cup, United could also use some players to leave the club as well and get some money in and trim the squad down just a little bit and get some unhappy figures away from the place and maybe change the vibe around the place a little bit, because it did feel like, and it was just one game, and maybe we're suckers because we bought in to some degree, but there's still problems at Manchester United, if you can believe that. And so I'm looking at Alejandro Garnacho, who I think they will get, it seems like, a nice fee from Chelsea for. Another homegrown, academy player sold by a Premier League club this summer, which has become kind of a trend due to PSR. I don't know if I love that one particularly for Chelsea, bringing him in, because it's not been the best last couple of years. Andre Onana didn't have the best time against Grimsby as well, so it looks like he could go too. So like those are not hugely consequential players, but when you look at the Manchester United project, whatever ends up happening with those guys, I think is going to be important. The player I'm most interested in, this is a bit out of left field, I really love the rumor of Conor Gallagher going back to Crystal Palace. He had such a good loan spell there a few years ago. It felt like he should have stayed there or made the move permanent from Chelsea. He ends up going to Atletico Madrid and had a decent time there under Diego Simeone. But he, the best period of his career was there at Palace. And so I'm a little bit of a sucker for something like that. And the way that they've been decimated in the last couple of summers, Palace, with players leaving, it feels good to see them get somebody in rather than just everybody going out.
Yeah, it's a great point. And Nick, I think when we look at players coming in, obviously Donnarumma looking like he could be heading up to Manchester City from Paris Saint-Germain. Rodrigo's a name that's been floating around. Johan Visa from Brentford. I mean, what do you think about some of those names there? And is anybody else that you have your eye on? Of course, we'll let you talk about Isak as well if you want to get it off your chest, mate.
Well, I will in a second, but yeah, the whole Kobe Mainoo situation, it blows my mind because
forgot about that one.
He's only potentially leaving because they don't have enough games to get him in there. I mean, that's the thing. Had they have Europa or even Conference League, you could say, hey man, you're going to play, but you can't. That team is built depth-wise in terms of the way they spent, right, to be competing on multiple fronts, and they just don't have the minutes for players. And so he's really interesting to me because how many times over the years have we seen someone leave Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, Man United, and you realize, okay, I thought they were great because they were wearing that shirt. He seems like someone who could buck that trend. He seems like a real player at age 20, the sort of player that United should be building around. And when you see look, this is an extreme example, but when you see what McTominay is doing in Napoli, you wonder about what that vibe is around that club. I do want to talk about Isak. I don't know if now is the time, so tell me to stop and we can wait. But Newcastle to me is the most interesting thing in the window, not just because I've watched them for 20 years, but it's because they have the money. We know they have the money. They targeted this summer to spend after not spending last year. They are potentially, and I hate being dramatic here, but they're potentially bungling a prime opportunity because, reportedly Liverpool are just waiting for them to say, okay, we're open to hearing a second bid. All right, well, take the 130 and spend, but they're not meeting the price on Visa. They're not meeting the price on Strand Larson. And it starts to feel like it did 20 years ago, except we have a big budget now and we're not spending, like if you're a Newcastle fan. So the Isak saga is so interesting because you see what it was like at St. James Park last week against Liverpool. You see how loud it was. The fans were in there. The team was in there. It was inspirational. And if you don't build on that, what a ahead of the Champions League. I just feel like a whole season could go from top 6 hopes to see a mid-table.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's just, not like they haven't got a lot to offer players who want to come in to replace Isak, because wages we know are good, obviously in the Champions League, and pretty much aside from that missing piece up top, a finisher, the rest of the team is looking pretty good, and there's been some good additions with, in defense and midfield this summer as well. So yeah, Newcastle are going to be really, really interesting to keep an eye on. Andy, any sort of wild predictions for who could go where and who could make some big moves late in the window? I mean, I feel like Tottenham Hotspur, your team, could just come and surprise all of us. And I mean, not going to call them Gazumped FC, but they've been Gazumped all season, all summer, basically, when they've got to some of these bigger deals. But it feels like finally the start to the season, Thomas Frank, a lot of positive vibes around him after the win against Man City. Feels like they're going to get a couple of big deals over the line late in the window. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, Nick, you guys are not the only ones that can't finish any deals and get players in the door this summer, so don't feel bad. Villa have had the same problem as well, and I'm thinking about the commonality between those kind of borderline perennial Champions League contenders to qualify versus the clubs, the Arsenals, the Chelseas, even United, obviously not in Europe this season, but Cunha and Mbumo seemingly didn't even think and just went there. And so the pull of the truly massive, massive clubs, I think, is still there. And we're seeing a ton of new signings and players just kind of coming and going, almost trading assets at this point. It feels like some clubs, but those clubs 5, 6, 7, 8 in the pyramid, if you will, have struggled to get deals in between now and the end of the window. I think Spurs get an attacker in. I don't necessarily know that it needs to be a number 10 or even a central midfielder. Pat Matarsar has been absolutely incredible to start the season. And I know you can't spend all season with him as your one most advanced attacking midfielder. And I believe there's Africa Cup of Nations coming up during this season as well. And so that's going to be a complication for their squad. But I don't necessarily think it needs to be central. I think the way that Thomas Frank has been so flexible when he was at Brentford, and even in 3 games at Spurs now, we've seen 3 different game plans from them. If he doesn't get a 10, I think they'll go a little bit more wing heavy. And so maybe they bring in another wide attacker, somebody that can offer something different to, Kudus, who's obviously starting on one side, and whether it's Johnson or Tell or Odebear on the other side, maybe somebody that's going to score goals just a little bit more on that other side. So I don't love the window that it has been for Spurs because there's been a lot of embarrassment, I think, attached to it. But I also don't think the squad was as bad as it looked at times last season. It certainly wasn't the 17th best squad in the Premier League. And just having a coach with, no disrespect to Ange, a cohesive plan that's a little bit flexible, I think is going to be the biggest thing that improves them this year.
Yeah, I think if we look at sort of those teams you mentioned that are just outside the big established clubs but want to get in there, like Aston Villa is a great point. I think they're going to make some moves, and out of desperation after a little bit of a tough start to the season, and I think there is some risk there of the project under Unai Emery stalling a little bit, and I think that would be very damaging long term for Villa. So they need to find some extra attackers. They moved on players. We know PSR and financial situation is right on the brink there at Villa. So they have the money, but they just need to be smart in how they're going to spend it. And it seems like they've been waiting for a moment late in the window to bring in some attacking players. So they're a club to keep an eye on for me. And then you have the likes of Wolves, West Ham, and Palace as well. I think kind of fall into that category of, hey, we need to do something a bit more here. Otherwise, we could be struggling and underachieving massively this season. So I think those kind of teams, they have money to spend, of course, but I'm intrigued to see who they go for late in the window, because I'm sure there's players, we've spent 10, 12 minutes here talking about it, but there's so many players that we haven't even got a chance to talk about that are going to be on the move and make late moves, and things change very drastically and quickly late in the window. So I'm really looking forward to seeing all those twists and turns that are coming up on deadline day. So head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com for all the latest news around the developing deals, what's happening. We'll have the full list of ins and outs for all Premier League clubs, a tracker on deadline day. We'll have you covered of all the big deals going on. It's been a huge summer, and there's still plenty more left in the tank when it comes to huge transfers.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host of NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long, and for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock.